Let me to introduce myself and my company at first, who we are. And I want to just at this point to explain you something. I'm not, unfortunately, I'm not Mr. Kevin Sun. I'm at Kauppge Shang. Yeah, Kevin Sun is our Director of European Affairs of HiSeas International Travel Group. But he cannot, unfortunately, he cannot attend this event for some important reasons. He is our expert in this field. That means I'm not the number one, even not the number two of our in this field of our travel group. But I'll try my best to give some interesting information. If you are impressed by our speech, get something valuable, I will be very happy. And you can imagine that how we competent in this field or in some other fields. And okay, let me begin my speech. And I want to share with you how can European river cruise market attract Chinese tourists. And in other words, I will share with you how to adapt to the Chinese market and how to increase the visibility among Chinese tourists. And I will, from three different points of view to talk about this topic. And the order of my speech, I will make some little change. I will take the third part of my speech at the first place because I want to give you some information about our travel group, who we are and what we do. Okay, we are HiSeas International Travel Group, founded in 2011. You can notice that we are a relatively very young company, but we developed very rapidly in the last years. Founded in 2011 in Lausanne, Switzerland, and headed now in Chengdu, China. And we are, according to the official data statistic of Chinese Tourism Bureau, we are now the number one of destination management company in terms of hosting Chinese tourists in Europe. And we have now all over the world more than 340 employers in Europe and in North America. And 1/3 of our employers are from Chinese perspective, foreign employers. And in last year, in 2017, we served altogether more than over 180,000 visitors from China to Europe and booked more than 800,000 room nights. And in this year, in the year of Europe-China tourism year, we expect to serve more than over 250,000 Asian tourists to Europe and book over 1 million room nights for the first time as our record. Yes, I have already spoken about our ranking in the field of DMC. Now we have not only guests from China, from mainland of China. We also have guests from Thailand, Indonesia, Myanmar, Vietnam, Cambodia, South Asia, and we have we have almost all destinations in Europe and in North America. And in the past years, we have achieved a development rate of over 50%. This is, I think, is amazing pace. And today we are the only Asian corporate member of all three institutions, that is ETC, ETOA, and the Europe-China Culture and Tourism Development Committee under the European Parliament. We are the first Asian corporate member of all these three institutions. And just why I come here, accept this invitation to speak here and to share with you something about the river cruise, because we have just embarked on this business sector and has invested for 5-6 months ago in a cruise ship on the Danube, and so we are expecting a bright future, I think, and that's a brief introduction of our company. And now let me to start with my part 2. That is, what are main features of Chinese tourists? I'll take some numbers or statistics from the official issuance of China Tourism Academy. According to our statistic, to the official statistic of China Tourist Academy, there 85% of Chinese tourists who arrive in Europe, who make tour in Europe, are organized by Chinese travel agency or some perhaps also by some foreign travel agencies, but the most of them are local travel agency in China. So we suggest both product. According to this opposition, we suggest both your product design and promotion actions of European river cruise, conduct in-depth cooperation with Chinese travel agencies. That's our suggestions. And another observation, the second statistic is 62% of Chinese tourists visited Europe only once in 2017. And the majority of them went there just for sightseeing. So, difference from guests from North America or from other parts of the world, we should pay attention to. We should focus on the needs of Chinese tourists. They want to see more sightseeing, they want to see more and experience more. And I will, and let's look into the details. And 62% of the tourists from China arrived in Europe not for the first time, and 70% for the second time, and 7% for the third time, and so on. And but you should pay attention to this detail. 10%, the third biggest sector of this statistic is the people. 10% of the tourism traveled to Europe for 5 times. I'll talk to the market and the sales strategy later, or in the Q&A session to this point. And my third part is the features of Chinese tourism. And according to this conclusion or observation, and what shall we do in our product design? Okay, let's have a look. Let's first have a look at the European, the features of European and American tourists. That's our observation. That will be not stand for the opinions of other partners or other institutions. So first, let's look at the travel type. As I just mentioned, the Chinese tourists focus on sightseeing, but the European and American tourists focus more than leisure and vacation, and they want to spend their time on the cruise ship, on the ships, and want to see more sceneries along the river. This is the main difference from the Chinese tourists. And the second one, the cruise time. We have heard the speeches of former speakers, and they have pointed out that they have different kind of types of products, but most of them are perhaps longer products of a longer duration. In the most cases, there are 2-week or even 3-week or 4-week cruise tour. And the third one, the supplier tend to supply the tourism with a more comfortable schedule. This is almost the same point of the second one. And the route, I want to say as to the Europe cruise tour, and the European suppliers want to show their guests from the source countries first, nearly all the routes of different rivers, Rhine, Danube, and other big rivers, perhaps also smaller rivers, sometimes also lakes. That's also a big difference to Chinese market. And another difference is the American and European suppliers want to equip their ship with wonderful equipment and service facilities, and to give their guests a more comfortable feeling. And as to the product type, and the European, the local, I will say the local suppliers tend to design multiple different types of products, such as short excursions, musicals, and some entertainment on board, and some culture and food, fine food, education, golf, sport, all possible things. That's also a difference from Chinese market. And the product design, I have mentioned, that is very much adapted to the guests from source countries. And another point that I want to point out is the guide. Perhaps you have not paid so much attention to this point. It's very important for the Chinese market. I'll talk to this point in my later session. And you should, in Chinese saying, we have a Chinese famous saying that has, I cannot translate so accurately, but it's just like this. You have your field and I have my field. We have to respect our each as a territory. You cannot cross the border to take my bowl. That's the meaning. Okay, on this point, we should pay attention to, we are supplier of river cruise, and we are not the agency of tour guides. So we have to do our work best, but not to invade other territories of other partners. So at last, that is the price difference. And okay, for Chinese market, it should pay attention to. It's not. I will not say Chinese guests want to cheaper price. It's not. It's not all right. It's right, partly right, but it's not all right. You should differentiate it. And now, just some points I've just mentioned. I have to go through these points. And Chinese tourists want to have a simple, especially for the tourists arrived in Europe for the first time. They want to see as more as possible. So they want to look at the ship, the cruise ship, as their bed, their hotels, their restaurants, and their transportation vehicles. So they want to spend the least money and to get the most as experience or benefit. So they want to sleep overnight on board and to see as more as possible in the daytime. And cruise time is much shorter because of the different the labor law in China. They have not so many holidays, not so many vacation days. They have mostly it's different. Yeah, you have to tell the difference between different customers. The young people has a few holidays, and the elder people has more vacation days, but not so much. And so it's a tight schedule, about 1 week, 5 or 6 days, is from our perspective the best choice. And you have combined the cruise tour with some other tours on land. And route, The Chinese tourists have learned in the class, in the school, perhaps only about the bigger rivers in Europe. So they want to visit the most famous ones at the first time, for the first times. And I have mentioned they want to pay less price, less money to get a better experience. So they don't, and they want to see more, spend more time on land, on shore excursion, on sightseeing. So they don't pay so much attention to the service facilities. And just to the point of product design, because of according to the statistic, the tourists from China are organized mostly by Chinese traveling agency, because the agencies know their countrymen better, and so if you want to get a bigger Chinese market share, you should cooperate with these institutions and travel agencies. That's my advice. And the tour guide should be guided. The tour should be guided. I mean the excursion, shore excursion should organize by Chinese travel agencies. And price is partly low, but not all. And my last part is the features of Chinese tourists and production, and according to these features, and we have to have our individual product promotion strategy. Okay, I have just mentioned this, according to this statistic, 85% of Chinese tour guides, and I have mentioned it. And the second point is, we have made research about the source, not only in source country, but also source cities, source regions. And we have noticed that the most of tourists from China are from, for a cruise tour, are from the big cities of China. They are, for example, Beijing, Shanghai, Guangzhou, Shenzhen, Hangzhou, Wuhan, Chengdu, Nanjing, Chongqing, Zhengzhou. And I think the former five cities you have already heard, but the latter ones you may not all have heard about them, because they are located in the middle of China, in the west of China. It's from our perspective the new market potential. You should pay attention to these regions. And actually, I come to the end of my speech, and thank you very much for your attention.